Hamish Sedman, who chairs this august body.
Alan Campbell, I'm the Chief Officer for the CCG.
Francine Thorpe, Director of Quality and Innovation.
Claire Todd, I'm the governing body nurse.
Kush Patel, GP and Neighbourhood Lead for Walton and Walton.
Lisa Warwick, governing body PA.
Anna Dobrowska, Director of Corporate Services.
Tom Tasker, GP and Neighbourhood Lead for Eccles and Irvine.
Good afternoon, I'm Brian Rowe. I'm the lay member of the governing body with specific responsibility for engagement. It's fabulous to see some more members of our community.
Hello, my name is Mansell Haney. I'm the governing body secondary care consultant.
Finance and Governance.
Can't hear that, sorry.
Edward Vitalis, lay member, Finance and Governance.
Yeah, well, I know, but we need to hear.
Hello, I'm Karen Proctor, I'm the Director of Commissioning.
Hello, I'm Steve Dixon, I'm the Chief Finance Officer.
So thank you. Welcome to our public. Welcome to our annual general meeting. Please, will you make sure, if you cannot hear any one of us, you raise your hands or shout as Valerie has just done. I suspect most people will know who I am, but just to reiterate, I'm Hamish Sedman. I'm a GP in Swinton the Lakes. I'm also a medical officer at St Anne's Hospice. I'll come back to why I mentioned the clinical roles in a minute. It's about 2 years ago that the health service went through a major reorganisation and clinical commissioning groups came into being. The key component of clinical commissioning groups was that they were led by clinicians, hence why I mentioned the clinical roles that I have and my colleagues have, because I think clinicians are well placed, or most closely placed to patients to see what services do and don't work for them. So NHS Salford CCG, or commissioning group as we call ourselves, are responsible for the lion's share of medical services and healthcare services that you people of Salford receive. We purchase medical care in a variety of spheres. So most of the hospital care, maternity services, community mental health services. Every GP in this city is a member of the CCG. And that brings me to this city. We're a population of about 250,000, just under 250,000 people. And like many areas, it's a growing city. We have a growing number of young people, but we have a burgeoning number of people in their older years. In a few years' time, over 30% of our population will be 65. Not many miles away from me, so I'll be one of those as well. So, with people becoming older, the law of the land is by and large that you will sometime fall heir to a long-term condition. That's just life. But how that care is managed is really important, and I'll come on to that later on. We also have some really severe challenges across the city. Depending where you live in Salford, men live 12 years more than other parts of the city, and women 8 years more. Or put it in more stark terms, if you live in the wrong part of the city, you have 12 years shorter life as a man and 8 as a woman. Not only do you have that shorter length of life, the length of time before you're free of disease is shorter as well. So we have huge inequalities in this system. So our aim is to redress that. We have 4 main aims. The shortest pen pencil is better than the longest memory. I remember that, that's why I keep using this. Brian's laughing at me because I think he wrote that. It certainly promulgates it. So, first thing, to prevent ill health. Common sense. To improve healthcare quality, we want to improve the quality of healthcare provision that people do get if you are ill. To improve health and well-being outcomes. I mentioned the fact that people have shorter disease-free lives. We want to improve people's well-being and length of well-being. And clearly, in that devastating figure I mentioned to you earlier on, that's the length of time people will live. We need to reverse those inequalities. Most of our care, most people in this room, receive their care out of hospital. So we have huge strides in improving primary care. We set out a number of standards for primary care. We've got some prospects and projects to improve the service that primary care offers. And we've introduced a minor ailment scheme so people can get a number of minor illnesses dealt with without having to queue to see the doctor. I mentioned long-term conditions. We have 70,000 people in this city, probably some of them in this room, who have long-term conditions. And we've introduced care planning as a way of looking after those conditions to help people get the best outcomes for their condition. We also know that smoking is a killer. We know that stopping smoking really improves your health chances very rapidly after stopping smoking. So we've introduced a screening program for everyone 40 years or around who has smoked in the last 5 years or does smoke. And we've made a big effort to try and pick up people with diabetes or pre-diabetes. We know that diabetes can be prevented, or at least type 2 diabetes can be prevented. And we do know that if it's managed properly, we can reduce the damage that it causes people. One of the most exciting things happening in Salford is a collaboration between ourselves, Salford Royal Foundation Trust, and Greater Manchester West Mental Health Services to work in an integrated partnership to look after the care of the elderly. And we have developed and started a really ambitious project to have an integrated care organisation where, under the banner of Salford Royal, we will work together to improve the healthcare of this group of our population. 400 social care staff and 1,000 healthcare staff in a single organisation to improve the outcome of our elderly population, which I'll be one fairly soon. So it's not surprising that Salford is seen as a beacon in many areas. And in the subsequent meeting after this, the governing body, you hear how Salford has been granted vanguard status to actually showcase how we propose our integrated organisation to work. We think we're going the right way. We have an understanding of the health needs of our population, and we have really good partnerships with our providers in this area. We're not complacent. We know we have huge challenges. We know where we have to go. And I look forward next year to, or I or my successor, reporting improvements on our healthcare outcomes for our population. So I would normally just stop at this moment and hand over to my colleagues. Sitting beside me is Alan Campbell. This is Alan's last AGM. It's Alan's last governing body. Alan has been an immense servant to the people of Salford over many years. He has been a huge servant to the clinical commissioning group. I think it's fair to say he was instrumental in the CCG being authorised. And speaking personally, he's been a huge mentor to myself and I think many other board members. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of the healthcare and social care system and the political system around Greater Manchester. And I dare say if you could get him in a bar with a wee snifter or two, he'd wax lyrical about a few things, but we'll maybe talk about it after the event. So I cannot stress what I personally, and we together, and the people of Salford owe to Alan. And I think that's why I just asked you to publicly applaud him for that at this moment. But there are very few times when you're in public office you actually get someone to tell you what they think of you and you probably that you serve. So Alan is leaving. A gentleman called Anthony Hassel is joining us. He comes from the Wirral. He has a great track record in public and private partnerships in developing new services, new offerings. He has a great track record in transformation, and he really very, very vehemently believes in the benefits of staff and public engagement in driving services forward. So I'm really looking forward, as are the rest of the board, to Alan's successor taking post.
And he lives in Salford.
Oh, he lives just up the road from where I practice, so he's a local man. So, enough from me, to our leader.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm going to be really quick with some slides just to illustrate some of the highlights from the year gone by. having heard Hamish say in a rather long speech that I'm getting old, that sounds very kind words, and I'm very grateful for the comments. I'm just going to talk about what we've done as an organisation this year. So just a few slides, and it's be followed up by some financial information as well, an update from Steve. So just the headlines
Excuse
about
me,
the
Alan,
organisation.
I'm not sure whether it's important or not, but and maybe everybody else can see it, but I
It's too far
can't
away.
see it. It's a waste of time. We can't see it.
Yeah, if you can't see it, then that's fair enough. I'll talk to you. Why
Can
don't
you
put the
people
lights
see
on
it?
to talk to you?
No.
The slides are really only to support. So why don't we put the lights on and have a conversation?
Well,
That's probably the best
we'd
way.
rather listen to you anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So okay. So really to walk through what's happened in the organisation in the last year. So a number of things have gone on, and you'll know from the media there's a lot of pressure in the NHS. It was an issue in the general election, and finances are still as tight as they've ever been, and lots of things going on. In amongst all of that, Salford's remained relatively stable, so financially, if you like, it's in control and has grip over its finances in a way that many of our partner organisations haven't always got. It's also a place where we stay on track, so for lots of the things that the population is entitled to expect from the NHS, the constitutional standards, Salford has met nearly all of those, and the ones that we haven't quite got there on, we're really close, and we have recovery, which you will hear discussed at these boards every time we meet, about how we get that constitutional standards accessible for everybody in Salford. So we're pretty much up there, and that will be reflected when we come to our, if you like, our external assessment. So NHS England, who have to assure our performance, will do so very shortly, and you can expect very positive news about their assessment of Salford in that. We also have investment plans going forward, so times are hard, but actually we've got money to invest in the right things, so to change that integrated system that Hamish has just touched on, so that you don't get the gaps between primary and community and acute and social work and mental health, particularly for the frail and elderly who need those things to work when they need them and work in a coordinated way. And to support all that with informatics, to get informatics and common information that tells whoever is with the patient at that particular point in time what the circumstances and what the pathology and the history of that patient are, so that you don't have to ask somebody else and come back again. So I think we're about to do some really class-leading things in Salford around that. And I just want to close that bit by talking about our partnerships. So I think we're a good organisation, but I would say that, wouldn't I? But part of our strength comes from the way we work with other people. It doesn't come from us, it comes from our relationships with the council, it comes from relationships with Salford Royal, from our neighbours in Bolton and Wigan and Stockport and Oldham and Manchester. We cooperate wherever it's possible and advantageous. We cooperate with them. And without that, we haven't got a professional platform. But actually, without our connection with the public, we haven't got a credible platform in Salford. And you'll have seen from one of the slides, if it were visible, that we've grown our engagement membership by 400 over the years. So in terms of building an understanding with the population, of hearing them and of communicating our ideas and getting feedback on those, we've expanded the base of people we talk to regularly by 400 over the year. So I think over 2,000 individuals on a regular basis now. And I think that's pretty much out there as well as anybody's doing, certainly in the Northwest. In terms of stuff, we spent the money we were allocated, and I think we spent it on some really important things like that Care for the Elderly programme, which is getting underway. We spent it on a lot of changes across mental health services. So the mental health liaison service with the A&E department and the acute system, we've invested greatly in that. We've invested in dementia care and support and psychological support. So and you'll know, those of you who read the papers and hear the news, that's become a very central theme of central government's intentions for the NHS. Actually, we put our investment in before we were told to in those areas. So Salford's investment was a year to 18 months ahead of the edicts now coming from David Cameron and from Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary. So again, that gives us a really good place to start from in terms of our mental health care. In terms of, sorry, I've done the engagement, I won't come to that. In terms of where we're going, it's really important. I'm leaving the organisation and I will be retiring very, very soon, actually, as Hamish has indicated. I'm really confident about this organisation and its partners and its membership and for the public of Salford. I think we're in a better place than frankly anybody else is in Greater Manchester in terms of the way we've aligned our services and our common purpose, if you like, our intentions to do the same things in the same way. And you'd think that would be obvious, but it isn't in lots of parts of the country, in lots of parts of Greater Manchester. Dominant in our organisation from the outset, and indeed from the PCT before the Clinical Commissioning Group was formed, was that we must, above all else, be an organisation that improves health and reduces health inequalities. Because it's easy to go down the road of doing the contractual things that Hamish described earlier and becoming the commissioner and paying for services. But unless we can demonstrate measurable improvement to health and show the benefits in those things Hamish again touched on, so extended life expectancy, of more years living disease-free, and improved economic activity as well, so increasing jobs and early years support from 0 to 2s and through school. Without any of those things happening, the CCG won't get anywhere, and we've recognised that right from the outset. So above all, we're a public health organisation, and I'm sure we'll maintain that in the future. So thank you very much. I'll close at that one, but Steve's going to just touch on some of the financial issues we have to address.
Thank you. I'm going to pull up 2 slides. Now this is for my purposes, not for your purposes, just to remind me what I'm going to talk to you about. Just quickly
move up here.
Go through them. You
No.
definitely won't be able
It's only 6 slides.
You won't be able to see that. That's a prompt for me, so I'll just talk through. So this is a formal part of the annual general meeting where I do have to present to the public the annual accounts for 2014-15 for Salford Clinical Commissioning Group. And what I'm going to present to you today is a couple of things. Firstly, our accounts are audited by external auditors, and it's external auditors that give us and the public assurances about the financial scrutiny and governance that we operate in within Salford CCG, and our external auditors provide an opinion on how we're managing the money and how we've produced our annual accounts. And there's some quotes on here which will be part of the pack that will be on our website in terms of the external auditors' findings. And what they found is that the annual accounts that we produce give a true and fair view of our financial position, that the annual accounts have been produced and been compliant with NHS England's framework and with legislation. So that means what we've produced is good quality and compliant with legislation. And their conclusion on our accounts is that they are satisfied with our production of our annual accounts, and they commented on the quality of the accounts and the reporting of the accounts. So in terms of the external auditor's opinion, that is as good as it gets from an external audit perspective. And the external auditors recommended that those accounts should be signed off. Those accounts were presented to our membership, to our 6 neighbourhood clinical leads, and those accounts were signed off and submitted to NHS England on time. So that was to give the public some assurances about the governance and the scrutiny that Salford CCG puts on its finances. The second slide I want to put up is around the actual financial performance of Salford CCG. So the first bit around external auditors was about the governance and how we manage the money. This is about how we've actually performed in terms of the finances. Now the CCG has got 4 statutory financial duties, and Salford CCG achieved all 4 of those statutory duties. We managed our money and we achieved an underspend last year. So we achieved an £18 million underspend. And that's really significant in 2 ways, because Salford CCG is in a relatively strong financial position compared to other organisations, not only in Greater Manchester, not only in health, but across health and social care, but across other CCGs nationally as well. And that £18 million We can carry that money forward, and it is integral to our 5-year strategic plan. We can carry that money forward, and that £18 million will be used for us to implement all of those things that Alan talked about in terms of making sure our services around integrated care for adults and older people, that we redesign those services, that we make sure that primary care is fit for purpose, that we embed quality throughout all of the services that we commission, and not least that the outcomes that we will achieve by using that money wisely in terms of making impacts on ill health and health inequalities. So that's really positive news for us in Salford. The second duty is around cash, to make sure that we manage the amount of money that's sat in our bank account and we achieve that target. The third duty is around making sure that we pay our contractors in a timely way, that we make sure that we pay all of our creditors within 30 days and we've achieved that target. And the fourth statutory duty was to make sure that the amount of money we spend on running costs, on management costs, is capped to a certain level, and the CCG didn't spend any more than that cap on its running costs. So the CCG has achieved all of its 4 statutory financial duties. So again, that is really positive news from an organisation perspective. As this is a formal part of the meeting, I just want to formally give thanks to a couple of people, not least to Lindsay Hume and the CSU financial account staff. Now, the Commission Services Unit, the CSU, has been given a hard time through members of the governing body through our meetings throughout the year. But I just want to thank the financial accounts staff in terms of the fantastic job that they've done in producing the annual accounts in a very, very tight timescale at year end and to a high quality. To my deputy, Latham Newland, and to the CCG finance team, who actually put a lot of work throughout the year to make sure that we deliver the financial results that we're showing, but also to every member of staff within the CCG. So whilst we've got quality and outcomes at the heart of everything that we do, every member of the CCG also ensures that we achieve value for money, and that we do scrutinise the money side of it as well as the quality and outcomes. And we're mindful that we do have to do both of those sides of the equation. So that's the formal part. Just to reflect back on where we've been, and to reiterate Alan's point that we are in a relatively strong financial position. We've achieved a lot in terms of where we've invested our money in 2014-15, but it's also a reminder for us not to be complacent. That the years ahead from a financial position and a financial perspective are going to be tough throughout the whole of the public services. Some organisations are feeling the strain now, and therefore Salford CCG needs to be mindful of the context that public sector are working within. But I feel confident that we have got the relationships, and we've got the staff, the capacity and the capability to actually make a difference and deliver the outcomes that we have set ourselves to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan and Steve. Now, a brief moment for members of the public to ask questions, if you will. Mrs. Iverson.
Thank you. Well, first of all, because I've been coming to these meetings for a long time, I would like to, I'm a non-elected representative of the public with some continuity of attendance, as most of you are aware. And I would like to, from this side of the room, to congratulate Alan and thank him for what he's done, because I have seen his leadership and some of the things that have gone on. But in addition to that, he has something which many chief execs do not have, and it's shared by many of the board, personal skills which are so valuable when dealing with members of the public. And for that, from this side, I wish it to be on record that we thank him for his leadership and what's been achieved, and the way he has personally dealt with members of the public throughout these years. Thank you. That's my first bit. Right? Now, the second bit is about the money and the old people. It's a good job you've got some money because, as most of you are aware, my husband requires carers morning and night, for which I have to pay. Many people don't pay, but some of us do. That's always a sore point. We should all pay. However, once the national minimum wage is increased, these people and people who come to our house are superb. I cannot understand how care companies get people of that quality to do that work for that miserable pittance. And remember, they have no petrol money and no time money between clients. It's terrible. And I have actually said to Ian Stewart, it's a disgrace that a Labour council allows this to happen. But of course, I'm well aware that the government grant to all local authorities covers money for seeing to these care situations. Now, the government will say, there's your money, manage it. Now, if any of us were running, say, a hairdresser's, and you have to increase the wage, and you've got 4 hairdressers, you'd cut them to 3. So we all know there's going to be increased unemployment. But you can't do that with these care workers. They have to do the job. And I am very bothered about it. You're talking about, and by the time there's a big problem, we may not need them. But you're talking about actually it's a mushrooming numbers of the older people, the increased numbers who are going to need this particular kind of home care, and you're going to need more than your 18 million. So I want to just raise that as a very serious issue. It's not just we're getting a lot of old people, we need to look after them. It's thinking about the care that goes into the home. And from my point of view, and you can always, you know that you can always ask me because I'll tell you the truth of how things are. I mean, at the minute, I wrote a paper which some of you had about what was going on with these care homes, and one of the directors is actually coming to me about it. But what we need to do is think ahead of how we're going to cope with sending people to the homes. And that's a very serious problem which you're going to have to face. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you for your comments on that, Alan, and you give us some thought-provoking comments and questions for Mr. Ponder in the journey we take for the integrated care organisation and the challenges of the national economic situation. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from?
Yeah, my name's Jim Collins. I'm on several groups. I used to be on the PCT at one time. When you say community groups, you liaise with community groups, is there a list somewhere of the groups you actually liaise with?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm proud to know that many of the people who are here with us today, and I will say, first of all, that there is never enough engagement. There is always more for us to do. We've made reference to our citizens panel a few minutes ago, and how that has grown over time, and it's grown quite significantly in the recent past. We have a long list of organisations that we liaise with. It's in our annual report, which is open to everyone. We're happy to provide that and the web link and all the rest of it. We're well aware of the engagement that we do within the council, with the council, and with that. I've been an architect of that myself and worked with many of you over many, many years. We do bespoke pieces of engagement as and when that is necessary. Specific pieces of work with older people,